A hooded gunman steps out of the dark at a quiet lover's lane. Minutes later, two teenagers lie dying, and a phantom begins his reign of terror over Northern California. He signs his letters with a circle and a crosshair. This is the Zodiac speaking. Police, journalists, even amateur code breakers across the world try to catch him. Half a century later, we still don't know his name. Tonight, we're cutting through the noise. No wild YouTube theories, no movie embellishments, just the real clues, the dead-end leads, and the questions that still don't have good answers. How many victims were there really? Did the famous ciphers reveal anything useful? And did investigators miss their best chance to stop him? Stay with me, because some of the most revealing details are buried deep in this case, hidden not in the codes but in the mistakes, the patterns, and the contradictions the Zodiac left behind. To understand the Zodiac case, we have to separate what's confirmed from what's speculation. There are only a handful of attacks officially linked to him, yet his letters claim far more victims. The media, movies, and online communities have layered on decades of theories, making it hard to see what's actually in the case files. In this video, we'll walk through the core evidence: the murders, the letters, the ciphers, the police reports, and the major suspects. We'll look at where investigators had solid leads and where they chased shadows. As we go, I'll flag what's documented, what's disputed, and what's just rumor. If you're into clear, tightly researched true crime breakdowns, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future deep dives. And try to stick with this one until the end. The final segments pull the scattered clues together into a clearer picture of how close we may, or may not, have come to unmasking the Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer's confirmed timeline starts on December 20th, 1968, at Lake Herman Road, near Vallejo, California. Teenagers Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday are shot while parked on a remote stretch used by couples. There are no surviving witnesses, no letters yet, and no strange symbol, just a brutal double homicide. On July 4th, 1969, another couple, Darlene Farron and Mike Majot, is attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park, also near Vallejo. This time, the male victim survives and gives a description: a white male, stocky build, around 5'8" to 5'10". The turning point comes when someone calls police minutes after the Blue Rock Springs shooting, calmly confessing and claiming responsibility for both attacks. Weeks later, the first letters arrive at newspapers demanding publication of a cipher and naming the murders. Only then do investigators realize they've been dealing with the same offender, one who wants attention and control. In August 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers received nearly identical letters. Each claims responsibility for the Vallejo attacks and includes one part of a 408-character cipher. Zodiac demands they be printed on the front page, or he'll kill again. A schoolteacher named Donald Harden and his wife Betty solved the cipher within days. The message is disturbing but also underwhelming. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It describes murder as man's most thrilling experience, but crucially, it contains no name, no concrete details not already in the news. This is our first major clue about Zodiac's psychology. He craves publicity more than secrecy. He wants police, journalists, and the public to dance to his tune. Yet he's cautious. He gives very little that could identify him. From this point on, the Zodiac investigation becomes as much about letters and codes as about physical crime scenes, a dynamic that will repeatedly misdirect investigators. On September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac escalates in a way that still baffles profilers. He approaches Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard in broad daylight, wearing a black executioner-style hood with the crosshair symbol on his chest. He claims to be an escaped convict, ties them up, and then brutally stabs them. Before leaving, he walks to their car and writes a message on the door: the dates of his previous crimes, the location, the weapon used, and the same symbol. He then calls police from a payphone, again confessing. 2 weeks later, he strikes in San Francisco, shooting cab driver Paul Stein. This time, he takes part of Stein's bloody shirt and later mails swatches to newspapers to prove authenticity. These attacks give investigators more physical evidence: shoe prints, handwriting, fingerprints, even fabric. Yet despite this, the case rapidly starts drifting toward an obsession with ciphers and letters instead of methodical forensic follow-through. A huge problem in the Zodiac case is victim count. Officially, authorities link him to 7 known victims, 5 dead, 2 surviving. But in his letters, Zodiac brags of dozens of kills, signing off with rising body counts. Some letters refer to earlier murders that might match unsolved cases. Others hint at future attacks that never clearly materialize. Investigators have to ask, is he telling the truth or inflating numbers for fear and fame? Serial killers often lie about their totals. Without physical evidence or a consistent modus operandi, he uses guns, knives, different locations, different victim types. It's hard to be sure. Some possible Zodiac-related cases, like the 1966 killing of Cherry Joe Bates in Riverside, have intriguing overlaps in style and letters, but no definitive forensic link. This ambiguity shapes the entire investigation. Every unsolved homicide in California becomes a potential Zodiac crime, stretching resources and fueling speculation instead of producing solid leads. Zodiac ciphers are famous, but their investigative value is often overstated. The first, Z408, was solved quickly and gave mostly generic violent fantasies. The second major cipher, Z340, remained unsolved for 51 years until 2020, when a team of private codebreakers used modern algorithms and pattern analysis to crack it. Z340 turned out to be another taunting message, boasting about not being afraid of the gas chamber and mocking police. Again, no name, no addresses, no hidden confession. It reinforced his persona, not his identity. Some shorter codes and the still unsolved 13-character cipher likely contain no straightforward name at all. They may be deliberate red herrings or structurally unsolvable. Yet for decades, law enforcement and amateurs poured enormous energy into them, often at the expense of boring but vital investigative work, canvassing witnesses, cross-checking timelines, and properly processing physical evidence. Zodiac understood something crucial. If you give people a puzzle, they'll chase it and forget to chase you. The case became dominated by suspects, especially one man, Arthur Lee Allen. A convicted child molester and former schoolteacher, Allen lived near the crime scenes, owned weapons, and allegedly made disturbing comments about hunting humans. Friends recalled his fascination with the Zodiac case. In the 1970s, investigators obtained search warrants, seizing guns, typewriters, and writings. But nothing conclusively tied Allen to the crimes. His fingerprints and handwriting didn't match the known Zodiac samples. Later, partial DNA from a stamp on a Zodiac letter failed to match him, though contamination and chain of custody issues complicate those results. Despite this, Allen's story took on a life of its own, especially after books and films highlighted him as the likely killer. This is a key lesson. Narrative appeal isn't evidence. Focusing too hard on one compelling suspect can blind investigators to other possibilities, or to the weaknesses in their own assumptions about the offender. Beyond Arthur Lee Allen, there's a long list of fringe suspects proposed by authors and online sleuths, neighbors, relatives, local oddballs, even public figures. Most of these names are built on coincidences, similar handwriting, a passing resemblance to the composite sketch, or vague personal grudges. The problem is confirmation bias. Once someone decides this is Zodiac, they reinterpret every detail as supporting evidence. A military background becomes proof of weapon skill. A move out of state becomes proof of fleeing. In reality, countless middle-aged white men in the Bay Area during the late 60s fit the general profile. Law enforcement has repeatedly said that many popular suspects are not supported by their files or forensic comparisons. Yet each new book or documentary revives a fresh Zodiac unmasked claim. These bad leads don't just confuse the public. They can drown genuine tips, misdirect limited investigative resources, and even harm innocent people wrongly labeled as serial killers. Physical evidence should have been the Zodiac investigation's backbone, but the era's limitations and some missteps left gaps. At Lake Berryessa, investigators recovered shoe prints believed to be from a size 10.5 wing Walker boot, a type used by the military. In the Paul Stein cab murder, they collected what appeared to be a partial bloody fingerprint from the taxi and a glove. Handwriting experts compared dozens of samples to Zodiac's letters, but handwriting analysis is subjective and prone to error. Over time, multiple experts disagreed on whether certain notes were genuine. Later, DNA became the great hope. Swabs from stamps and envelopes yielded partial profiles, but degradation, mixed samples, and uncertain provenance made them hard to rely on. Some letters may have been handled by editors, police, or hoaxers. This leaves us with tantalizing but incomplete evidence. Prints that might not be his, DNA that might not be pure, and handwriting that can't stand alone in court. The case sits in a gray zone of maybes. Official communication from Zodiac mostly stops in the mid-1970s, but that didn't end the story. For decades, new letters surfaced claiming to be from him. Some were quickly deemed hoaxes based on language spelling or lack of authentic details. Others remained disputed. Media coverage shifted the case from investigation to legend. TV specials, books, and eventually the 2007 film Zodiac reshaped public perceptions, emphasizing some suspects and downplaying others. In the process, a lot of nuance and uncertainty got sanded away. On the positive side, online communities digitized documents, shared scans of police reports, and applied new analytic tools. On the negative side, social media amplified unvetted theories and doxing of supposed Zodiacs. This matters because public pressure can influence how law enforcement allocates time and what leads are considered hot. The Zodiac case shows how a high-profile mystery can migrate from the evidence room into the arena of pop culture, and how hard it is to bring it back. Modern forensic advances have breathed some life into the case. Techniques like touch DNA analysis, enhanced fingerprint scanning, and genetic genealogy have solved other cold cases from the same era, most famously the Golden State Killer. So why not Zodiac? Partly because the surviving evidence is messy. Many items were handled by countless people before DNA protocols existed. Some originals may be lost, contaminated, or legally tied up. Another issue, we don't have a confirmed full genetic profile everyone agrees truly belongs to Zodiac. Genetic genealogy, using distant relatives' DNA from consumer databases, requires cooperation, funding, and a usable sample. Law enforcement is understandably cautious about overpromising. Still, every improvement in image enhancement, database searching, and AI-driven pattern analysis creates new opportunities. A re-examination of prints or partial DNA in a decade might reveal what today's tools can't. The catch is that time also erodes records, memories, and physical evidence, making the window for a definitive answer smaller each year. Even with decades of work, many core questions remain open. First, who exactly was Zodiac demographically? Profilers suggest a white male born in the 1930s or 40s, likely with some technical or military background, comfortable with firearms and outdoor terrain. But his literacy, sarcasm, and interest in codes hint at someone who read widely, maybe with college exposure, though not necessarily a degree. Second, why did he stop, or did he? Serial killers sometimes age out of violence due to health, fear, or changing circumstances. He may have been arrested for unrelated crimes, moved away, or died. Third, how much of his persona was performance? The hooded costume, the references to movies like The Most Dangerous Game, the ciphers, all suggest a man crafting a role for himself. Across all these questions runs a theme: uncertainty. We can outline probabilities, but almost every detail has a credible alternative explanation, keeping the mystery frustratingly intact. Let's pull the threads together. First, the hard facts. We have a small set of confirmed attacks between 1968 and 1969, some physical evidence, a distinctive symbol, and a series of letters and ciphers verified through details only the killer could know. Beyond that, the ground gets shaky. Victim counts, claimed crimes, and fringe letters remain unproven. Major suspects like Arthur Lee Allen are compelling, but each falls short when weighed against fingerprints, handwriting, or partial DNA. The ciphers, once thought to hide a name or confession, mostly reveal ego and bravado. The biggest takeaway is how easily an investigation can be skewed by spectacle. Zodiac exploited media, puzzles, and fear to control the narrative. Investigators, the press, and the public all, at times, chased the story more than the evidence. Yet the case also sparked advances in profiling, interagency cooperation, and forensic thinking, lessons that have helped solve other crimes even if they never close this one. If you've stayed with this breakdown, you now know the Zodiac case is far more than mysterious symbols and a creepy hood. It's a study in how evidence, media, and human psychology can collide, and sometimes work against justice. If you want more in-depth, source-based, true crime and unsolved mystery content like this, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you'll see future investigations as soon as they drop. It genuinely helps this kind of long-form research survive on the platform. In the comments, tell me, which clue or misstep in the Zodiac investigation strikes you as most important? Do you think the case is ultimately solvable, or are we chasing a ghost shaped more by myth than reality? If you found this useful, a like and a share go a long way in getting it in front of other viewers who care about careful, skeptical, true crime coverage. Thanks for watching, and stay curious, but stay critical.